Will the Prime Minister... He said it. Will the Prime Minister, and I hope the whole House, join me in condemning Reform's vile rhetoric, and will he reassure us that this Labour government will continue to support the protections and opportunities for all our care leavers?
Well, Mr. Speaker, November marks the first ever Care Leavers Month, and that is a time to recognise that every child deserves support to achieve their potential. And through our landmark Children's Wellbeing Bill, we're requiring every local authority to help care leavers find secure accommodation. It saddens me that the parties opposite voted against it. The comments about children in care being evil are utterly appalling. And now the member for Clacton has heard them.
Right? Picture this. It's Boxing Day. You survived a turkey coma, dodged your aunt's political rants at Christmas dinner, and now Britain's countryside is buzzing with a tradition that's older than your nan's secret fruitcake recipe. But wait, there's a plot twist worthy of a BBC drama. Labour wants to ban it. Yes, you heard that correctly. Ban it. And Nigel Farage, well, he's having absolutely none of it. Buckle up, because this is about to get properly British. Quick favour, if you're enjoying this absolute chaos, smash that subscribe button. Seriously, over 94% of you haven't yet. It's completely free, takes literally 2 seconds, and honestly means everything to us here at British Mirror. Cheers if you did. Right, back to the countryside rebellion. So here's what's happening. The Labour government, in all its infinite wisdom, has decided that trail hunting, a practice that's been part of Boxing Day for literally centuries, needs to go. Trail hunting, for those scratching their heads, is when an animal-based scent gets laid across the countryside, hunting dogs follow it, and then riders on horseback chase after them. No animals harmed. No foxes running for their lives. Just people, horses, dogs, and a really good excuse to wear those ridiculous red jackets. It's basically a countryside obstacle course with extra steps and significantly more tweed. Now, before you think this is some sort of barbaric blood sport resurrection, let me be crystal clear. Actual fox hunting, the kind where Basil the fox meets his unfortunate demise, has been illegal since 2004. Trail hunting? Completely different beast. No pun intended. It's legal precisely because nothing dies except maybe your dignity if you fall off your horse in front of the entire village. Think of it as extreme countryside cosplay with hounds. But Labour's new animal welfare strategy has trail hunting firmly in its crosshairs, and Nigel Farage, speaking from Kent on Boxing Day itself, is rallying the troops like William Wallace in a Barber jacket. Standing there in the Garden of England, Farage told GB News exactly what he thinks of this governmental brainwave. Spoiler alert, he's not impressed. These Boxing Day meets have been going on for centuries, Farage declared, probably with that signature smirk of his. There will be several thousand people here today, as there will be at meets all over the country. It's a wonderful day out. And is not wrong. Tens of thousands of people participate in these hunts annually. That's not a niche hobby. That's basically a national movement with horses. But here's where Farage really gets his teeth into it. He accused the government of being filled with ignorance of rural communities and suggested they have a loathing of the countryside. Strong words, but is not pulling them out of thin air. He pointed to Labour's recent inheritance tax changes that hit family farms harder than a tractor running over a smartphone. Then there's the new animal food standards that apparently put British farmers at a disadvantage compared to their European competitors. Because nothing says supporting British agriculture quite like making it harder for them to compete, right? Farage called a potential ban on trail hunting an attempt to stop an innocent, nice day out. And honestly, when you strip away all the political theatre, that's essentially what it is. People gathering in their communities, participating in a tradition that connects them to centuries of history, wearing silly outfits, and probably ending the day at a pub. If that's what the government considers dangerous, one has to wonder what they'd make of Morris dancing. Now here's where this story gets properly interesting. Farage isn't just ranting into the void. He's got a strategy, and it's surprisingly savvy. He pointed out that between 70 and 100 Labour MPs represent rural or semi-rural constituencies. That's not insignificant. These aren't inner-city representatives who think the countryside is something you see from a train window. These are MPs whose constituents actually participate in these traditions, whose votes depend on understanding rural life. And get this, 4 to 4 Labour MPs abstained on the budget vote regarding inheritance tax. One actually voted against it. That rebellion led to what Farage calls a U-turn, with the government raising the threshold before Christmas. In other words, when rural Labour MPs feel the heat from their constituents, things change. Democracy in action. In it, Farage's battle cry is essentially this. Rural communities need to band together and tell their Labour MPs that if they support this ban, they can kiss their seats goodbye come the next election. If you do this, we will not vote for you, he warned. It's political pressure at its most direct. No subtle lobbying, no quiet meetings in Westminster corridors. Just a straightforward message. Vote to ban our tradition, and we'll vote to bin you. The Reform UK leader also took a gleeful swipe at Labour's recent history of policy reversals. From their handling of grooming gangs to the inheritance tax situation, he painted a picture of a government that says one thing and does another with the consistency of British weather. We're going to fight this all the way, and we can win this. And I truly believe that. Farage added, sounding less like a politician and more like a football manager giving a halftime pep talk. But let's zoom out for a moment and look at the bigger picture here, because this isn't really just about trail hunting, is it? This is about the enormous cultural divide between urban and rural Britain. It's about London-centric policymaking that often seemed completely disconnected from life outside the M25. It's about traditions that might seem bizarre or outdated to some but represent community, heritage, and identity to others. The Countryside Alliance certainly sees it that way. Tim Borner, their chief executive, called the government's focus on hunting completely unnecessary. He pointed out that this issue was supposedly settled 20 years ago when the hunting ban came into effect. It is unbelievable that the government wants to waste more parliamentary time on hunting, he said. This issue was settled 20 years ago as far as Labour was concerned, but it does not seem to be able to leave it alone. And he's got a point, hasn't he? Britain faces inflation, a cost of living crisis that's squeezing families harder than your nan's goodbye hug, an NHS that's perpetually in crisis, housing shortages that make finding affordable accommodation about as likely as finding a unicorn in your back garden, and infrastructure that desperately needs investment. Yet here we are, debating whether people should be allowed to follow dogs chasing a scent across fields. One might argue there are slightly more pressing matters demanding parliamentary attention. But for Labour, this might be about optics and pleasing a particular segment of their base. Animal welfare plays well with certain voters. Positioning yourself as a party standing up against anything that even vaguely resembles the old fox hunting practices can score political points in urban areas where hunting culture is about as familiar as Martian cuisine. The problem is that while you're scoring points in one area, you're hemorrhaging support in another. And those rural and semi-rural constituencies? They are not safely Labour by any stretch. The recent rebellions over inheritance tax prove that these MPs are feeling vulnerable. They know their constituents are watching, and they know that rural voters have long memories. Cross them on issues that touch the heart of their communities and heritage, and you might find yourself job hunting come the next election cycle. What makes this particularly interesting is the timing. Boxing Day hunts are peak visibility for this tradition. Thousands of people gathering in villages and towns across Britain, all participating in something that could be banned. It's the perfect moment for opposition voices like Farage to make their stand because the tradition is happening right now, in real time, with maximum community involvement and media attention. Trail hunting defenders argue that it provides economic benefits to rural areas, supports local businesses, maintains traditional skills in animal husbandry and horsemanship, and most importantly, brings communities together. For many rural residents, these Boxing Day meets are as much a part of Christmas tradition as mince pies and arguing about whether Die Hard is a Christmas film. Take them away, and you're not just banning an activity. You're disrupting a social fabric that's been woven over centuries. Critics, of course, argue differently. They see any form of hunting as problematic, question whether trail hunting might be a cover for illegal fox hunting, and believe that tradition should evolve with societal values. It's a legitimate debate, but it's also one where urban and rural values clash spectacularly. What Farage has cleverly done is framed this not as a debate about animal welfare or hunting practices, but as a question of governmental overreach and cultural respect. His position Labour is out of touch, elitist, and dismissive of rural life. Whether you agree with him or not, it's effective messaging. He's not defending killing animals. He's defending community traditions and rural identity. That's a much easier sell. The inheritance tax comparison is particularly sharp. Family farms getting hit with taxes that could force their sale after generations of family ownership struck a nerve across rural Britain. It felt like an attack on a way of life, on people who worked the land and produced the nation's food. Now, add to that a ban on a cherished tradition, and you've got a narrative of urban politicians who simply don't understand or care about rural communities. Fair or not, that narrative resonates. Labour finds itself in a tricky position. Push ahead with a ban, and you risk alienating dozens of your own MPs and their constituents. Back down, and you look weak to your urban base and animal welfare advocates. It's a political minefield where any step could blow up in your face. The inheritance tax U-turn showed that rural pressure can work, which emboldens opponents of this trail hunting ban. Why wouldn't they fight when they've already seen that fighting gets results? Meanwhile, Farage is having the time of his political life. He's found an issue that lets him position Reform UK as defenders of tradition, rural communities, and common sense against what he paints as London elites dictating how everyone else should live. It's classic populist politics, but that doesn't mean it's ineffective. If anything, it's remarkably effective because it taps into genuine frustrations and cultural anxieties. The question now is whether rural Labour MPs will hold the line or cave to constituent pressure. Those 4-4 abstentions on the inheritance tax vote suggest there's already significant unease. Add trail hunting to the mix, and you could see an even larger rebellion. Parliamentary arithmetic matters, and if enough Labour MP from rural constituencies decide this is a hill to die on, the government might not have the numbers to push this through. What happens next will tell us a lot about Labour's priorities and its willingness to listen to its rural MPs. It'll also show whether Farage's rallying cry translates into genuine political pressure, or just makes for good television. Either way, this Boxing Day tradition has suddenly become a frontline in Britain's ongoing culture wars, proof that even in modern Britain, centuries-old practices can still ignite passionate political battles.